Sometimes at night I can hear the ice crack. It sounds like thunder.
Never feel happy. No, you won't. Until you try. You'll never feel happy.
All right, we're on. Welcome to WASA Distance Education. This is MEL3E, Math for Work and Everyday Life, grade 11. I'm Pete. I'm your teacher, and welcome to the first class of 2015. So hope everyone had a nice holiday. Happy New Year. And so now it's time to wrap up this class. So we have 3 weeks of class left to go, and then you'll probably have about another week to kind of wrap up any last little details, such as the exam and the culminating activity. So I think it should be fine. So what I'm going to do today, we're starting, we're actually in Unit 4. We started Unit 4 before the holidays. We did Lesson 16. And actually, lesson 16 was really, it more belonged to Unit 3. We were talking about vehicles and the costs of owning and operating vehicles. So lesson 16, which we did just before the holidays, really more belonged to Unit 3. So that's why we went ahead and did that. So if you missed that, if you were away, because I know some of the learning centers were closed, so take a look in the archive, the WASA archive, or you can look on my YouTube channel. It's PW WASA, and you can find out the week 6 classes is what you're looking for, and lesson 60 I think was the last 2 days, so class 3 and 4. All right, so so that was it. Now what we did for the vehicle cost, just a real quick kind of overview of what it was we just the idea is that when you purchase a vehicle or lease a vehicle, or even if your auntie gives you a vehicle, right? That's all well and good, but then you have to pay certain ongoing expenses. There's a cost of having the vehicle, and that's what we want you to be aware of. And you can actually work out fairly well what those costs would be. You could make a pretty good estimate in advance. In knowing in advance when you're shopping for a new vehicle, or even as you know, if you're thinking of taking your auntie's offer up to give you her old truck, you can actually sit down and say, can I afford this? Can I put gas in it? Can I keep it maintained? Can I keep insurance on it? And that'll really help you make a decision whether you can afford something or whether it's really more financially better for you not to have a vehicle. Because in some cases, depending on your circumstances, it might be better not to have a vehicle. Okay, so that's what that lesson 16 was all about. And we just had different ways of working out what the vehicle costs were. One of the little things that may trip us up is that some costs are given per year and some costs are given per month. So we have to convert everything, depending on what we're looking for. We have to convert everything to a common time frame. Usually we work it out per year, and then if we want to know per month, then we can divide by 12. So that's what lesson 16 was, kind of in a nutshell. I don't think the math is all that complicated. And you can take a look at some of those examples. It's just more to get you thinking about what it does cost to operate a vehicle. There were a few questions where we were talking about like buying tires and buying other types of parts. You know, there is a tendency we want to buy really nice tires for a vehicle, but it is possible to work out how much that costs per kilometer or per year. You know, if you have an old truck and you're not going to keep it for very long, buying really expensive tires for it, you know, there's a cost to that, right? You know, you might be able to sell them though. So there you go. And then we talked about fuel efficiency, and one of the things for those of us, at least who are a little older, is that we've changed from measuring in miles per gallon, where the bigger the number, the better. And now in Canada, we use liters per 100 kilometers. as our fuel economy, and actually what it means is that the smaller the better. So that's really, for those of us that are just above a certain age, it can be a little bit confusing because you're going in and they're saying, yeah, this car is more economical than this other one, and you look at it and it's the lower number that they're saying is better. Okay, so we've just changed it. So work through that material. You can look at the lesson either in the WASA archive or on YouTube to get some ideas. And you're also welcome to call in or to contact me, um, if you want some more help with that. Now, the lesson 17 we're going to start today, and I'm going to just talk about Unit 4 and the culminating activity because this is lesson 17. So traveling distances. So I think that one of the things you should work on doing today, this week, is getting a copy of the culminating activity. So I'm going to send that out to the DECs, and it'll be the same one as we used last time. So if they still have a copy of it, they can use that. So the culminating activity is basically, instead of having a Unit 4 test, we just have this culminating activity, which just wraps up and lets you apply pretty much everything you learned in the course. Now, the idea behind it is that you should have some fun with it. So approach it from that um, perspective, right? You should have some fun with the culminating activity, and if there's stuff on there that doesn't really that you think you could change, you're welcome to change it. Certainly a little bit. You can ask me. It says 4 people. If you think the 5 people would be better, of course, go for that, right? Stuff like that. So the culminating activity mirrors very much the what you're going to be doing in lesson 17 to 20. Okay, so a lot of the tasks that you're going to be doing in lesson 17 to 20 are also part of the culminating activity. So you might be able to, if you get a hold of that culminating activity, kind of be working on it alongside of the key questions in Unit 4. That's what I'm suggesting anyway. And that means that you'll be, when the course ends, you'll actually have the culminating activity done, or pretty well, uh, pretty well underway. Okay, so that's what I'm going to suggest. The culminating activity is worth, I think it's 10% of the course. Mark, 10% of your course mark is a culminating activity, and the point is that they should be relatively easy marks to get. Okay, it's not a big ordeal. It should be something fun, and you're just applying everything you learn. So, you should be really getting 8 or 9 or even 10 marks for that, or percent for that, and that'll really help your final mark. All right, so even if you're not really good at taking exams, if you do that culminating activity and you put everything in it, then it's going to help your final mark. All right. So here we are, and of course I'm going to go through that culminating activity page by page at some point, just after we get through the this unit 4. So here's lesson 17, and this is on page 16 of your Unit 4 handout. So if you didn't get Unit 4 before the break, you're really going to have to get a hold of a copy of it today or from your DEC soon. The other thing that will help you a little bit in this unit is having a clearer plastic ruler. It'll really help you if it's a short, like a 15 centimeter or 6-inch plastic ruler, kind of helps. But anyway, if you can just find a plastic ruler, it helps for looking at distances on maps, and that's what we're going to do in this first little bit here. Okay, so oops. Now, if you want to travel somewhere, and this whole course is about making decisions based on information, right? And based on being able to calculate things, right? So you want to know how much gas it's going to cost to go someplace, or how much it's going to cost to go someplace. You can work out the fuel economy and then how much the gas costs. If you want to know how much it costs to buy a car, you can work out all the costs. In this case, when you travel somewhere, there are costs to that, both money and time, right? And especially in the north where the distances are very large in a lot of cases, it can cost a lot of money and a lot of time. Okay, so we're trying to show you different techniques, different strategies for making decisions based on your informed knowledge, what you know, all right, and what information you have. Okay, so if you're going to try to decide between driving and flying, which in the wintertime is sometimes an option up north, and certainly by the time you get to Sioux Lookout, it is an option, right? You can drive to Thunder Bay from Sioux Lookout. You can fly there. And sometimes it's money, sometimes it's time. I made a decision to drive to Thunder Bay one time because even though there was a flight, the flight left so late that if I started driving, I'd actually get there before the flight got there, just because the flight was leaving in a few hours. So that's the sort of decision. Sometimes if you have to be in a place at a certain time, that's your decision. Okay. So now let's take a look here at maps, and this may be a review for some, and it may be a whole new thing for you. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to go through this. So all right. So here's okay. So estimating distances on maps. Now we all have Google, and that's really great, but it doesn't always work, right? Google Maps, and we're going to talk about Google Maps, right? But this, we're talking about just looking at distances on a good old-fashioned paper map, or maybe someone gives you a photocopy or a printout, and you need to know distances. Okay. So what it's saying here is that this is on page 16. So really, it's rare to have two places on a map connected in a straight line, right? When we're trying to find the distance from between one place and another, we usually want to know we usually want to know how far it is if we were going to drive. Usually, okay. If we're flying, then maybe we could do the straight line distance, but usually we want to know the distance for driving. So what we have to do then, if we want to know the distance between two places, is we can't just, here, let me show you here. Let's say we want to know the distance between Sunderland and Cannington here on the map. And there we go. Oops, this is going to be a little awkward. Anyway, Sunderland and Cannington. So it's this one and this one. So, we can't just go like that, because that would give us false information. That would make it seem a lot shorter than it actually is. Okay. So what we have to do is look at the distance as if we were driving it, which would be along here. And I'm going to change the color to green here, and then along here. Okay. Now, when we're making this sort of estimate on a map, our accuracy, it may not be all that great, but for our purposes, for most purposes, it'll be perfectly fine, right? If you're out a few percentage, if you're 10% or even 20%, it really doesn't matter, right? If you work out, it's going to take you 2 hours to drive from Sunderland to Cannington, and it takes you an hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours and 15 minutes, that's close enough. So the way we do this is that every map, every valid map, is going to have a scale. Now in this case, it's in the bottom right-hand corner. A lot of times you'll find it in the bottom left-hand corner. Depending on the map maker and what their purposes were, you may find it in any of the corners, but usually it's somewhere on the map, and it's a scale. Okay. Now in our scale, it has miles and kilometers on it, which is great. That's exactly what we're looking for. Okay. And so in this case, it means that 2 miles is between these two posts here, or 5 kilometers is between those two posts here. Now, the way we use this scale is we use a ratio. Okay. Now, it kind of shows how to do it in the book. I use a slightly different way of doing it. So let's work on that. First thing I need to do is get myself a ruler here. So I'm going to get myself a ruler. Okay. Where did I... Oh boy. I had rulers available here. Okay. Just going to find one. I actually had a ruler at one point. U-L-E-R. Oh, wait. You know what? Maybe I don't need to do that. Sorry. So it's a new year. I think I'm probably, there it is. There's my ruler. So, uh, okay. All right. So there's my ruler. Okay. Oh, really? Okay. Not really sure why they're not giving me a ruler here. Hmm. No, doesn't want to give me a ruler. Okay, let's try some more. Really, we're gonna need a ruler here, so I'm gonna get one. Not really sure what a... Okay, hopefully that's the ruler that we want. It'll work. Okay. So I have my plastic ruler. This is the same thing as having a plastic ruler. Okay. And this is probably not the best ruler, um, just because it's too long, right? What I really would like, this looks like a 15, oh, I guess it's not bad. Anyway, it's kind of a big ruler. Um, so what I want to do here when I'm measuring distances on a map, I'm going to set up a little ratio, okay? Because we know that if I go down here and I measure this, now my measurements are going to be different from yours, and I promise you that if you measured this and you get totally different numbers, as long as you measured it the same way I did, it'll all work out. You'll get an answer that's pretty close to what I got. Okay. Now I'm assuming it does say metric, so these are centimeters according to mine. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring 5 kilometers. And according to this, 5 kilometers, according to my ruler, is 3.123. It's right between two of them, isn't it? All right, well, let's call it 345. So it's 3 point, um, uh, 3, there you go. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 3.35 centimeters. Okay, so this is our scale, and this part of it, the left-hand side here, will be the same for anything we measure on this map. Okay. So I'm just going to write that bottom a little bit better because my writing's looking a little bit 3.35. 3.35. Now the reason I said 3.5 instead of 3 or 4 is that that line is right between the two lines. If it was closer to either one of them, then I would just simply, uh, you know, I'd call it 3.3 or 3.4, because doing 2 digits of decimal places with a ruler like that is kind of dodgy, but really it truly is between the two lines. All right, so now I have my ruler, and as long as I don't change the size of this now, it's going to be consistent. What we're going to do is use the ruler to give us a scale for this distance. So the first thing I want to do is measure the blue line. And in order to do that, and this is where um, having a clear ruler is very helpful. And that's why I was suggesting a clear ruler. So I'm going to put the 0 up against one end of the thing that I'm measuring. Okay, we got to get it as parallel to the line that we're measuring as possible. So I got the 0 up against one end. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read it. So I have the 0 up here. Okay, I don't want to write on the ruler. And this is where I'm going to measure right here. Okay, so it's kind of hard to say, but it's pretty close to 6 centimeters. Maybe we'll call it 5.9 centimeters. And this might even be off just a little wee bit up here. I'm just going to move everything down. There we go. Yeah, so I'm going to call that 5.9 centimeters for the blue line. 5 point. Let's do that. 5. let's write that in blue. So that's 5.9 centimeters for the blue line. Okay. And now I got to measure the green line, and we want the ruler to be kind of like that. And I'm going to go off and just have to see. This is where having a bigger ruler is not as convenient. That's why the small rulers, you get those small rulers, they come in the little geometry kits, the little Oxford geometry kits, but you can also get them at Staples. They're not that expensive usually, but they can be hard to find. For some reason, people seem to like bigger rulers. But the 6-inch rulers or 6-inch 15 centimeter rulers are handier for this sort of thing. Okay, now we're going to measure that, and now I made a pretty classic mistake here, and I want to show you what that mistake is. The 0, I can't actually draw on the ruler, which is kind of too bad, but the 0 is actually here, and I put the end of the ruler at the beginning of what I want to measure, but actually we have to move it and put the 0. You see, we have to put the 0 on top of what we want to measure. Okay. The other thing is that when you're using a ruler in a physical ruler, some people, they kind of lean back and they look at the numbers, but measuring with a ruler is more accurate if you actually look down on the ruler. So if you put it kind of right in front of you, and you lean forward and you look straight down over the numbers, and that gives you the most accurate reading. And it's a couple of millimeters maybe when you're doing it that way, but you want to be as accurate as possible. So the way this works now, I have it all lined up, and so I have 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, and it looks like 2.4 centimeters for the green. So I can't really write on top of the ruler, unfortunately. I'm going to find that good ruler I had before. So now we have each leg of our distance, and what I have to do is add them up. So I have 2.4 centimeters, okay, and then I have, for the blue, I have 5.9 centimeters. So we can just add those up. Let's see, 4 and 9 is 3, 1, that's going to be 8.3 centimeters. So that's the total distance from Sunderland all the way to Cannington. Okay. So 8.3 centimeters. So on here, on our little ratio, and I forgot to write centimeters there, the part that's on the scale, that's on the map, is there. That's the actual distance. And the part that we measured is in the denominator. Now this will work either way, right? It doesn't matter whether you put the as long as you're consistent. So since we put the part that we measured off of the map in the bottom, then we're going to put what we measured on the map for the distance in the bottom. And that means we're going to solve this equation right here. Okay. Now, this is where things get a little bit awkward, because in the text, they actually show you how to do that. Okay. And they have a different measurement for sure. They had 19 millimeters, which, by the way, is 1.9 centimeters. But it doesn't matter. We're going to get something fairly close to what they got. Okay. So if you take a look at the bottom of page 17, they pretty much have the same kind of setup. Okay. And now over on page 18, they're going to show you how to solve that. And they use a technique called cross multiplying. Okay. I don't use cross multiplying because it basically adds an extra step. Okay. And basically what I'm going to say here is that the rules of mathematics allow me to multiply. This is an equation. It has an equal sign. And the rules of mathematics allow me to multiply both sides of this equation by the same number without causing any problems. It's like if you have a balance beam, right, like a balance scale, and you add one kilogram to each side, doesn't change the balance, right? So in this case, we multiply both sides by, say, 8.3. So it's 8.3 times 5 kilometers, 0.35 centimeters. And actually, that 8.3 is centimeters. And then we have question mark, we don't know what it is, 8.3 centimeters, and then we're also going to multiply that by 8.3 centimeters, okay? So all I did was I multiplied both sides by 8.3. I multiplied both sides by this number because what we want is question mark. That's the number we're trying to work out, right? And the reason we don't know what question mark is, the only reason is that that 8.3 centimeters is clogging things up in the denominator on the right hand side. So if I multiply both sides by 8.3, look at what happens on the right side. 8.3 cancels 8.3. It's just like, if that was a 2 and there was a 2 in the denominator, they would cancel each other out. Okay, so what we end up with then, I'll just rewrite this. It's 8.3 centimeters. I just keep the units. It's not super important, but if you're going to go on in mathematics, you're going to take the grade 12, you're going to take any other college type classes, the units will actually be important. Okay, and they'll actually show you in that class how to use units in the calculations. So I've just rewritten this whole thing, and look at that question mark, which is the number we want, which is the distance between Sunderland and Cannington, in kilometers. It'll be in kilometers because that's the way we set it up. We can work that out because we have all the numbers that we need on the left-hand side. You see? So that's how it works. Now you could cross multiply and it will actually work, but you'll just end up doing an extra step. That's what I'm going to say. Okay, so if you want to do it the way the book shows, it's going to work for you. Now again, the book has different numbers for the measurement, but that's okay. I'm going to show you that it's going to be okay here. So let's just work this out. So I'm going to do 8.3 times 5, okay, divided by 3.35. Okay, and I get 12 point, and it's 3/8, so I could round that to 4, and our units are going to be kilometers, and that's what it is for question mark. Okay, now in case you're wondering why that is, yeah, I'm just going to show you is that if we go up to the previous line, centimeters cancel each other out, and so the only units that we end up with is kilometers. Okay, that's why I'm saying that I always include the units, even if you don't do anything with them. If you put the units in, it's kind of useful. It's a useful habit to get into if you're going to be doing mathematics that has units in it. Okay, so there you go. So now we can say that the distance from what was it, Sunderland to Cannington, Cannin, is 12.4 kilometers. Now you're going to say, but Pete, but the book says something else, 15.5. Okay, yeah, it's a little different, and that's one of the pitfalls of doing this type of measurement. With a ruler and using a scale. Okay, you're going to be accurate. I mean, it's pretty close. I think we're probably within 10%. Yeah, maybe a little off, maybe within 20%. But it's close enough for what we need. Okay, if you were planning a trip and you were deciding how much fuel to put in your truck, I don't think that having 12.4 when it's actually 15.5 is really going to be a big deal. Okay. Now you try it, and I'd be curious to know, how close you get. I've done this a few times, and I think I always get quite a bit lower than what they got in the book. So who knows? But yeah, they got 19 for the scale, and then they got 59 for the two roads there. Okay. So anyway, and they're doing it in millimeters. So yeah, maybe it makes maybe they were a bit more accurate. Okay. Now, the nice thing about this is that if you photocopy the map and it gets stretched out a little bit, if it gets stretched out vertically or horizontally, it is gonna cause a problem. But if it gets stretched out in both directions by the same amount, then it'll be fine. But you got to be careful about that. A lot of photocopiers do they'll maybe make it a little narrower, and that could be one of the reasons why my numbers are different from the book, right? It's just that if this picture, if you ever are putting pictures up on like in a Word document or something, a picture of a person, and you need to make it a little narrower, and you make a mistake, and you grab the side of it, and then the person looks really kind of weird, or you make it shorter, and then the person looks really kind of wide. The same thing can happen to a map, and then that messes up the scale. Okay. All right. Well, I've shown you how to do this on a map, and it's a perfectly fine way to do things. But there are ways to do this with technology. It doesn't always work, but we'll take a look at that. Okay. So now for this cross multiplying or for finding an unknown, let's take a look at how to do that. Page 18, they actually show you a few examples of how to actually, whoops. Okay, so it's showing you how to do all this stuff. Okay. So here you go. So question 1, finding the unknown here. This is page 18. So we see we have the unknown. They're calling it X instead of question mark. But you'll notice you can use anything really for a variable name. I use question mark. Yeah, why not? Okay. Just because the book always uses X, it doesn't mean you have to. It's just a convention in mathematics. We know that X means the unknown. All right, so here's an example of this is a ratio. It's a very common type of equation where you have a ratio, and it'll come up again in fuel economy. I think it may have actually, we may have looked at that a little bit in fuel economies and calculating that. But anyway, we have the unknown. So remember that what you do here, if your x is in the numerator, you just want to get rid of that denominator. And the way to do that is to multiply both sides by the denominator amount. So I could say 48 over here, 48 over here. Okay, and then those two cancel out. And so we end up with, whoops, we end up with 48 times 5 over 12 equals x. Okay, and that's pretty much a very efficient way to do it. So what are you doing? If effectively, even though what you're really doing is multiplying both sides by 48, but actually what you're doing is you're taking the number there and you're moving it up across the equal sign. You're moving it into the numerator on the other side of the equal sign. Okay, and it's very similar in algebra when we move a number, an addition or subtraction across the equal sign, we change the sign. Well, that's pretty much what we're doing, aren't we? We're taking that 48, and instead of dividing it by x into x, we're multiplying it by 5 on the other side. Okay. So if I were to solve that, so it's 48 times 5 divided by 12, and I get 20. So, all right, I haven't left myself much room, but anyway, 20 equals x. All right, you could switch that around, say x equals 20. It doesn't matter. The equal sign means the same. So if you get to an answer like that and it says 20 equals x, and that makes you uncomfortable for whatever reason, you can just rewrite it as x equals 20. Perfectly okay. Or you leave it like that. All right, so for B, it's going to be the same thing. We're just going to just move that over, and there you go. Right? Now, if you ended up with one where x is in the bottom, right, let's say it was 70 over 28 equals 12 over x. If you ended up with something like that, and I don't think they're showing you any here, but keep in mind that whatever you do on one side, you as long as you do it to the other side, it's perfectly okay in algebra, which means that if I don't like this x on the right side, I'm perfectly, absolutely no problem. I can write it like that, okay? Because I don't like the x in the denominator. That's hard, right? So, exactly. So now what? Well, what did I do to the right-hand side? I flipped it over. I took the reciprocal as the mathematical term for it. So let's flip over the left-hand side. 28 over 70. There you go. Okay? So you're allowed to do that according to the rules of algebra. So just keep that in kind of your back pocket if you ever have to solve one that has the x in the denominator. And that's why I said before that, the ratio, when we set the ratio up, it doesn't matter, which order we do things in as long as we're consistent, right? When we're taking the scale, the measurement scale, if we take the measurement and put it in the numerator and then put the distance that it represents in the denominator, it's the same as long as we do that consistently. Okay. All right. So now for question 2, now they've just added units here. And this is where having the units available will help you to understand what the units of x are. Okay. So let's try this A. Remember that we're going to take this guy and we're going to multiply it. So let me write it out. It's 53 millimeters, okay, times 6 kilometers divided by 10 millimeters equals x. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we're going to multiply everything out, but before that, let's cancel out the units. I got millimeters divided by millimeters. Basically what we have is 1 millimeter divided by 1 millimeter times 53 on the top times 10 on the bottom. Okay. So in other words, I could rewrite this. And the reason why this works, I'm just going to do a little aside here. The reason this works is that I could rewrite this perfectly valid times 53, right, times 6 kilometers, right, times 1 millimeter. That should be millimeters. Times 10. Okay, so I could rewrite it that way, and then I just cancel those out, which is in effect what I did by canceling out just the unit part over here. Okay, so the net result then is that we just have 53 times 6 kilometers divided by 10, and so the only units we're left with is kilometers, and that helps us. So it's 53 times 6 divided by 10. And so my answer is 31.8. And the only thing we have left, change better color, is kilometers. Okay. And that's why I think they want you to go through that, just to kind of get an idea of how to keep track of what the units are. Okay. Now you can do it if you know that your map scale that you measured in millimeters and the millimeters that you measured in represent kilometers, then you know your answer is going to be in kilometers. Okay, so, but this is the mathematics behind that. Okay. So there you go. Now for question 3, I'll just leave that up to you, question 3, but basically they want to know the distance between these towns and cities and stuff like that. Okay. And, I suggest you try a couple of these because it is a good skill to have. And again, there's our scale down there. Okay. You'll just measure that. And then you'll set up your ratio for each one. So Pickering and Oshawa. So this is Southern Ontario. There's Pickering. There's Oshawa. So that looks like a good straight line. It's kind of hard to see though because this little road here, that's a little tiny road, right? The actual highway is like that. So it's kind of hard to say whether that would be good in a straight line or not, because it's not really a straight line, is it? So, all right. So there's an example of one where, you're probably better off using technology, but really for this assignment, they want you to measure it. So this is the 401. This is this humongous highway. There you go. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So you ever been on the winter road and you're just tooling along, and all of a sudden someone goes blasting by you? It seems like they're going like 3 times as fast as you're going. Okay. So imagine that, except that there's 4 lanes on either side, and everyone's doing that. That's that highway right there. It's pretty crazy. I don't like driving down there. Okay, so so that's how you calculate those. And just try a few of them and check the back, and don't get too worried as long as you're close, within 20 or 25% of the answer. I think you'll be fine. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about the way that we really usually calculate these things. Usually, when we want to know the distance between places, we use Google Maps. And I don't know when Google Maps started, but it seems like I've been using them forever. It was one of those big, you know, back when we were all just using the internet to post on bulletin boards. That suddenly Google comes along, and they have this very useful map thing. Okay, so let's take a look at what they're suggesting that we do. So what you want to do for Google is you're just going to go into Google Maps here, and I'm just going to type that in. So I have the Chrome browser. It doesn't matter what browser you use. Whoop. All right. And so we just want, we're in Google, and there's a couple of ways you can do it, but basically Maps. Okay. Now, if you have a Google account and you sign in up in the corner, then it'll remember some of the searches you were doing, but it'll also, of course, so it's maps.google.ca is the one that you want. Always really make really sure that you're getting the right link there, because it's very easy for people to make one that looks like Google and it's not. All right, so I guess it's automatic. We just picked kind of Sioux Lookout here. Okay. So on page 20, they want us to find the distance between Thunder Bay and Winnipeg. Now, this is the sort of thing that you'll be doing on your culminating activity. You'll be doing, I think, for 3 different cities, but there's also, it's a trip, so it'll be a few different places. All right, so here we go. So we want Thunder Bay. Now, Now it says Thunder Bay, Ontario. Make sure that you pick the one in the right province, because there may be another Thunder Bay somewhere. And so you got to make sure that you get the right one. For places we're familiar with, it's pretty easy because we'll recognize that it's the wrong place. But if you're going someplace out west that you've never been, make sure you get the right province. There might be the same city in Manitoba and Saskatchewan and Alberta, right? So Winnipeg, MB, Manitoba. So all the other places are just different spots. So here we have the distance, and it actually very helpfully shows you. It shows you the route between Thunder Bay and Winnipeg. It shows you the distance, 705 kilometers, and by car it's going to be 8 hours and 34 minutes, right? Now those estimates, a lot of people tell me the estimates are slow. As far as I know, it always takes me exactly what they say. So, maybe if you drive fast, you can sort of keep that in mind. If you drive even slower than I do, then it might take you a little longer. And of course, that's assuming that you don't have any stops, or that you don't run into any bad weather, or maybe the police aren't out there kind of slowing traffic down a little bit. The other thing about this is that notice that they've picked 17 here. Okay? So they picked 17. Well, there may be another route, you see, depending on how you want to go. Let's say for some reason you want to go along Highway 11 here. Okay. So you can actually drag it down here. Oops. You can actually drag it down to have it take this southern route. Okay, and now it's going to say, it's going to give you the distance, and then it's going to give you the time. Okay, so you can actually tell it which route you want. And sometimes they give you, I don't know why it's doing that little loop there. Sometimes they'll give you several different options. Okay, so you can decide. For example, if you wanted to go visit your auntie someplace, you can actually, maybe your auntie's down here on Highway 71. You can have an extra little trip. You just do plus, and you could have a little trip. It's also good if you're planning a longer trip with different segments and you're going to stop someplace. Let's say you wanted to stop in Dryden, so you would actually Dryden. Okay. So now you have an extra a trip here. The problem here is that yeah, there you go. Now you want to put them between. So now it's the same distance, but now you have Dryden, so you could actually, um, it'll tell you if you're going from, oh, it looks like we're starting in Winnipeg. I thought we were starting in Thunder Bay. Anyway, Winnipeg, it shows you, and it's actually showing you here, unfortunate little toolbars. It's showing you that between Winnipeg and Dryden, it's 4 hours and 13 minutes. So it's actually showing you each leg of the trip in these driving directions, and then another 4 hours. So 2 half days, that's the sort of thing, if you were doing that, you could, you could say that's a half day. That's good. I'm only going to drive for 4 hours. I'm going to go shopping. Okay, well, that doesn't actually work out for Dryden, does it? But, that's the sort of thing you could say. Or maybe you say, all right, I want that first leg to be a little longer. Maybe I can do it in one day, something like that. Okay. All right. So that's how these technology things work. And so your numbers may be slightly different if you are using this, depending on what you type in. They might be just slightly different on what routes it picks. Now, the other little pitfall that sometimes you get is that they'll try and route you through the United States, and you may not want to do that because then you have to go through the border crossing, and so take a look here and see in the list where they routed you, and also look at the map, right? And you can zoom that map in, right? Um, so because I know sometimes like the map, sometimes depending on where I'm going, they'll route me through the United States, but it just um, for whatever reason I don't want to go through the United States, so I'll take the slightly longer route and go through Canada. Okay. The other thing is that when you're driving around southern Ontario, maybe you want to take the scenic route. Maybe you're on vacation, you don't care about driving really fast, so you can just drag this little dot around and find a better road. Just ask people. That's usually the way to do it. Hey, what's the more scenic road? Okay, gotta say route. I learned to say route when I went to Dallas, Texas. The Americans say route, and they would laugh at me when I said route. Sorry. Okay. Um, Now, there are some pitfalls here. So let's talk a little bit about the pitfalls. All right. So let's say that I wanted to go from Thunder Bay, and we got to make sure it's the Thunder Bay in Ontario. That's, whoops, Thunder Bay, Ontario. Okay. And let's say that we want to go to Sulaka. Okay, and I'm picking this one. There we go. And there's the route. Okay. So there's the route, 4 hours, 40 minutes. That's about right. Now, let's say you didn't know the area. Um, can anyone tell me what's wrong with this? By the way, I reported this to Google. I try to report things as much as possible. Sometimes they fix it right away, and I've noticed I reported something about to Lookout, and they fixed it, and then I noticed just recently that it's broken again. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe sometimes they update their maps from some other source that's got bad information. Anyway, if you see this, it looks good. It's 4 hours and 40 minutes, but notice the way they make you go. They make you turn north east at Ignace and take 599, so through Silver Dollar, and that's not a bad highway, but this one, 642, that is the most back country road you would ever want to see. It's really hard to drive on it. It's not a very good road. A lot of twists and turns. So the right way to do this is to take 72, and it doesn't really change things at all. See, it doesn't really change. It's 4 hours and 50 minutes. It really doesn't change anything, but 72 is a much better road. It's much better maintained. So that's where you got to be careful when you're using technology. You use your knowledge, but most importantly, you ask someone that's been there before, right? You plot a route on Google Maps. As I say, if you sign in and you use your login stuff, you can actually save it. So you plot out your trip on Google Maps, you print it off, or you get it on your phone or something, and then you go to your friend who's been there before, or your uncle or whatever, and you say, does this look right? Is this look okay? And they might say, oh, that's the slow way, or no, you don't want to take that highway, you want to take this other highway. People with experience can usually help you when you're traveling, when you're planning a trip. Okay, so that's what I'm suggesting you do. So we use technology, but we also double check, especially for a big trip. All right, well, what's the other one uh, that we want to go? Let's say that I'm in Sioux Lookout. Okay, let's see, Sioux Lookout, and that's Ontario. And let's say I want to go to Wiagama. Okay, it's actually showing me it's showing me the two places, but it can't calculate a driving distance. Okay, and it can't calculate a route. Okay, and the reason for that is just there's a limit, right? It's limited to actually provincial and federal highways, basically, is what it's limited to. So public roads. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. So it won't show you the ice road, and it won't show you, it won't help you there. Okay. Can you walk? It might actually be able to show you an airplane. I don't know. No, and again, flights, no, it won't even show you flights. Why? Well, probably because they don't have a contract with the air carriers between Sioux Lookout and Wiagama. If it did, it would probably give you some flight schedules. Can you bicycle there? No, you can't even bicycle between Sioux Lookout and Wiagama. All right, so we know that you can do that. But this is an example where the technology just doesn't work. And you'd have to go ask someone. If you needed to, if I was going to drive from Sioux Lookout to Wiagama, I would just ask someone, and say, hey, how do I get there? How long is it going to take? How much fuel am I going to need? Anything I should be careful about. Okay. All right. So I think, yeah, okay. I think that's pretty much going to wrap that up. All right, let's go back to the course material then. And so it gives you some things to try. I suggest that you work through those. Make sure that you're familiar with Google Maps because you're going to be using it quite a bit in your culminating activity. Okay, so and that's a little pitch for you to get the culminating activity, get the handout today or tomorrow, and then just look it over. Okay, it seems like a lot, but it's actually the culminating activity. It's step by step, and it does follow along with what we're doing in Unit 4. Okay, so now here's key question 17. These are your key questions for this unit. So here you go. So this is the bottom of page 52. 52. This is the bottom of page 22. Oh boy, that was a long break, wasn't it? Um, so it wants us to find the value of x. So it's exactly what we did in the support question. One, you're going to multiply both sides by the denominator under the x, and you'll find the answer that way. Okay, that shouldn't be too hard. Now, a little more challenging are the ones with units, but you do the same thing. You multiply both sides by the number in units under the x, and then you cancel out. In this case, the millimeters will cancel out, and you'll end up with kilometers. So the important thing for number 2 is that x has units, right? The answer has units. Okay, so be careful about that. Okay, so if you just plunk down a numerical answer, just a number for that, it's wrong because there is a unit attached to that number. Okay, it's a measurement is what you're calculating. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so question 17. So this is where you're going to need your clear plastic ruler. Okay, you can ask around, ask the DEC. Maybe if you know someone at the school, just ask them if you can borrow a clear plastic ruler. Worst case scenario, I will try to find you. I don't have a stockpile of clear plastic rulers, and I have to say they don't have short ones at the local store, but we can try and find you something anyway, if you're really stuck. Okay. So, and really so you want to find the distance between each of the two cities and towns. Okay, well okay, and it's almost cut off a little bit, but you can still, it's 10 kilometers from there to there. Okay, there you are. Okay. So let's see, Mississauga, there's Mississauga, and Toronto. Oh, there's Toronto. Okay, so the distance between them, that's kind of that's kind of ugly, isn't it? Because which route are you going to take? So just as you're doing these, just kind of sketch your route. I guess it's probably going to be, how would you do it? Yuck, something like that. That's is that the Gardner Expressway right there? Anyway, just yeah. So as you're doing these, just sketch them on the map and see what you come up with. Okay. I'm just looking for your process, not really necessarily that we have the exact same answer. Okay, it's your process. All right. So how you go about it, not necessarily, because really it's, how you go about it and your answer depends on what route you picked. Now, so this is a word question, 2 marks, top of page 24. And again, they're asking a word question. Why is it not usually realistic to measure the distance between 2 points on a map, right? So we talked about that, but basically it's usually the 2 points that we want to go to are on roads, and roads don't usually go between 2 points on a map. Usually, not always, but usually. Okay? So we need to kind of follow the roads rather than just measuring the distance. Okay? So the rest of those should be, I'll leave you to look at those. And make sure that you try and answer these word questions. Okay, do your best with those. All right, well, let's wrap it up for now, and we'll come back tomorrow, and we'll start on lesson 18.